All right, we're going to call this Finance Committee meeting to order. It is November the 2nd at 5:45 p.m. Present are council members Harris, Bub, Blake, and Marmee, and have Barker sitting in for Lang. First item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $1,500.
Good evening. We want to disappropriate money in the travel and training account, which is $1,000, and then vehicle maintenance $500. So since COVID, we've ceased training that's off-site, so that's why we want to reduce it by $1,000. And then for vehicle maintenance, our vehicles have ran well this year, so we want to move that $500 into another account. And I'll address two after you vote on one.
Any questions?
I'll offer a motion.
Second. Who was the second? Harris? I have a motion by Bub, second by Harris. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Next item is a disappropriation in the amount of $1,500.
So we're basically moving the money from the two accounts we just spoke about into the overtime account. We need to have $1,500 in there to pay some staff members who run an after-hours group for offenders.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Bub, second by Harris. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is a request for appropriation in the amount of $2,789.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a two-part donation, one from the Licking County Foundation. The other one is from the riders that are using Horns Hill Downhill Park. Both these donations are related to the park, and the intent of this $2,789, once it comes in, is to go back in to further the trails at the downhill park.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Barker, second by Bub. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the city of Newark to prepare and submit applications to the Department of Homeland Security for fiscal year 2020 Fire Act grant programs in support of training programs, equipment purchases, funding for personnel, fire prevention, and fire safety programs throughout the city of Newark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is nothing more than a resolution that will allow us to apply for those.
Motion.
Second. Motion by Bub, second by Barker. Any questions and or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. That motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, this Finance Committee meeting stands adjourned.
All right, we'll call the Service Committee meeting to order. Those present are myself, Rath, Harris, Barker, Blake, and Bub. Up first, consider Ordinance 20-37 and ordinance amending articles. Article 135, display signs and outdoor advertising, NCO Chapter 1294 of the Zoning Code of the City of Newark, Ohio. Mr. Lang, are you going to speak to this?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd be happy to.
Go ahead.
So earlier this year, there were a number of signs that were put up around the community, and I received a number of complaints relative to their size. And sorry, can't hear me? And there were a number of complaints relative to the size of the signs. And I believe at the time our law director had told us that our current temporary sign legislation would not be enforceable because it discriminated based on the content of the signs. And so I asked our law director to draft a more defensible temporary sign legislation, and 20-37 is what he came up with. I don't know if the law director would like to add anything to that, but the idea being that the proposed legislation would no longer discriminate between the type of sign. So all temporary signs would be regulated the same.
So all of the specific legislation to the specific type of sign, to the specific type of temporary sign has been stricken.
Correct.
And we now have one rule over temporary signs regardless of what those temporary signs are being.
Correct. That is the
used for.
intent. Yes.
Okay. Any questions from anybody in the committee?
I got a question.
Mr. Harris?
So, explain to me what you mean by temporary sign. Are we talking campaign signs? Are we talking about what kind of signs? Just give us an example for everybody.
Sure. So it would be any sort of temporary sign, certainly including campaign signs. It would include realtor signs as well. All those sort of temporary signs that are put up. Think of yard signs, right?
Yeah.
That's essentially what we're talking about.
Would also include contractor signs, promotional signs, real estate signs. Mr. Marmon?
I guess sometimes it's easier to define a temporary sign by defining what is not a temporary sign. A non-temporary sign is one that requires a permit, and you have to have a permit in order to get a sign, and it's going to be permanent, but it has to be approved by the city.
Mr. Barker?
Well, current, for instance, development signs or real estate signs that are that are following the current code, and this is going to be considered, will they be grandfathered in, or will they immediately have to adjust to this new code?
Yeah, I'd have to defer to the law director on that one.
I think if we're talking about temporary signs, by definition, they're not going to be grandfathered, because if we're changing a sign ordinance with regard to billboard size or electronic signs, wall signs, I mean, if you look through the sign ordinance, it's complex about the different kinds of signs. The fact that it's a temporary sign, and by definition it's only going to be there for a limited period of time, I think that takes us out of the conversation of possibly grandfathering those signs. So I think that probably will be fleshed out more when it goes to a public hearing at the Planning Commission, and then we'll have another public hearing when it comes back from the Planning Commission. I guess I don't know that there's a yes or no answer to your question,
Sure.
Although my argument would be that grandfathering does not apply.
Okay. Can I follow up with that?
Sure.
What is this who will be managing sign complaints? Is that a property maintenance?
Zoning.
Zoning will, okay.
And I guess to that point, I would clarify, there is no intent to change our current process for managing signs, which is a complaint-based process where if we receive a complaint, then we respond to it. We certainly don't have the personnel to be proactively policing.
Okay.
Any other questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? Do we have a motion?
I'll offer a motion.
Motion by Bub,
Second.
seconded by Barker. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Blake?
So the process will be that we'll pass this out of committee and it'll go to Planning Commission, is that correct?
That is correct, and then it'll come back to us for, Planning Commission will host a public hearing, and then it'll come back to us, we'll have a second planning, or public hearing, and then we'll vote.
Does it matter that that's at economic development? Can be easily corrected.
Pardon?
It can be easily corrected. I
Yeah,
don't think
it
we-
does under the fourth whereas, say this went through Economic Development Committee.
I can fix that easily. That's not going to require a motion to amend. That'll just be a typographical error that I can correct myself.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing this on signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That passes with a motion of 5-0. Up next, we'll consider resolution number 20-86, a resolution authorizing and directing the Director of Public Service to enter into contract with without competitive bidding for necessary emergency repairs at the Newark Fire Station number 3 and declaring an emergency. Mr. Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I've asked the majority and minority leader if they'd be so kind to bring this up using Rule 11 tonight, and the law director was kind enough to put together quick legislation for me when I called him on Friday. As you all know, we had an automobile that hit station number 3, and getting repairs made in a timely basis will become easier by you guys voting and allowing me to waive competitive bidding. In the city of Newark, we have a couple different levels that we have to climb to. 35,000 and below, I don't have to go to bid. 35,000 to 70,000, I go to the Board of Control, and then anything over that, I have to come to council and ask for a waiver. We do not have all the numbers in on the fire station on what it's going to cost yet. We do have insurance either through the city or through the driver of the automobile, which our insurance company is handling. But what this process does is it expedites the process of repairing the station. So let's give an example. Let's say the bidding is below $70,000. Let's say the price is, because you guys have acted tonight, now I don't have to go to a Board of Control meeting. It just expedites everything. And if it happens to be over that amount, then I can go still enter into contract. We're going to use Coffin Ball Construction. They've been on the site since the accident, and we're going to use Houston Plumbing, who've been on the site there as our two main contractors. Again, I don't have the total bid yet, but there is insurance. But your action tonight will help expedite the repair process.
We don't know if this will be over or under 70,000.
No, I don't. I don't at this point. My hunch is it's going to be real close when you add everything together. Because as you look at the pictures that I sent to each and every one of you, not only was there a hole punched through the wall, which you have to replace the studs and some foundation work, you have to go up in the brick veneer a little bit further and remove that. There's more brick work, and then there's interior work that'll need to be done too. And what you saw there was temporary gas lines so we could have heat in the building. And that was done by Houston.
Any questions from the committee? Questions from the audience? Do I hear a motion?
Second. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do we need to even,
No, this is really here just for purposes of discussion, since it didn't make
That's what I
the
thought.
deadline for the agenda. I asked that the clerk set it for discussion here, just because it seems to be easier to discuss matters in committee than in council. So no action is really required of the committee, since both the majority and the minority leader have agreed to invoke Rule 11 later tonight.
fair enough, so we won't call for a vote. Any other questions? No other questions, comments? Okay, we'll see you in council.
Thank you. I'd just make a couple of comments. The
That's all.
firefighters that were there were terrific with help. The firefighters that were there on the scene were terrific. The fire chief has been intimately involved in this process. So everybody's worked real well together to help move this forward. And thanks for your help.
No problem. With that, Service Committee is adjourned, and council will proceed at 7 p.m.